Okay. So, good day, everyone. So, for this week's topic, we will be talking about blood donor selection and also donor screening po ulit. Okay. So, almost similar lang sa ating topic before sa lecture. So, parang review na lang ulit tayo. Okay? So, special thanks po kay Ma'am Clarice. Pinahiram niya sa akin yung PowerPoint presentation niya. Okay? So, thank you. Okay, let's start. Okay. So, what is blood donor selection? Okay. So, generally, ang main purpose ng ating blood donor selection is to know whether the person is in good health or not. Okay. So, it ensures the safety, unang-una, ni donor and also ni recipient. So, the process of selection of donor contributes to the safety of blood and blood products. Okay. So, ang general rule na kailangan nating tandaan, so only persons in normal health with a good medical history and absence of high-risk behavior associated with TTIs shall be accepted. Okay. So, ang ating donors should be purely voluntary lang. Okay? So, the donation should be a voluntary, non-remunerated blood donation. Okay? So, based on the free will, and there should be no payment either in the form of cash or in kind. Okay? So, again, purely voluntary lang ang mga donors. So, hindi po natin sila binabayaran para mag-donate. Okay? So we have different systems for blood donor selection. So we have first the national policy and legislative framework. So the following should be included in the national blood policy. First, you have yung strategies for the recruitment. Next, you have selection and deferral of donors. And then yung blood screening and confirmatory tests for TTIs. Or transfusion transmitted infections. Should also have a legislative framework that defines the fundamental principles and ethics of blood donor selection and donation. Okay? So, confidentiality, privacy, self-determination, and non-discrimination are also part of the protection for the health and safety of blood donors. Next, we have national guidelines and criteria on blood donor selection. So the formulation and implementation of the criteria in selecting donor from the national guidelines should protect the health of the donors. So guidelines should be simple yet comprehensive and relevant to the local situation. So the use of donor questionnaires is the key tool in the assessment of the health and safety of the selection process. So ang donor questionnaire natin should be simple, unambiguous, culturally acceptable, easy to complete, and available in local languages where appropriate. Okay, next, we have public information and donor education. So we have recruitment materials and educational materials. So under recruitment materials, you have yung highlight. Should give highlight to the reasons why someone should give blood and provide basic criteria for donation. Okay, so educational materials naman, it should have the overview of the donation process and yung eligibility, and accurate information should be given. So these informations are disseminated for public awareness and for campaigns din. Okay? So this is an example ng inyong mga recruitment materials. Okay? So, yung announcements ng mga blood donations and so on. Okay? And then, educational materials. So, it states yung donation process, kung sino yung eligible. Okay? So, mga also shows yung ibang risks. Uh, ayan. So, risk if you should donate or not, if you're eligible to donate or not. Okay? Ayan. So, purpose nito is to educate the public. So, yun yung example. So, next we have suitable infrastructure and facilities. Okay? So, selection process should be performed in a friendly and conducive environment, and it should provide adequate privacy and confidentiality. Okay? There should also be sufficient and suitable equipment that are well maintained, such as weighing scales, sphygmomanometers, and other essential consumables like disinfectants and lancets. We should next is adequate financial and human resources. So there should be a budget that is allocated for the training of staffs, educational materials, and supply of equipment and consumables. So the need for an effective education, recruitment, and selection is essential to reduce additional costs due to wastage of blood, consumables, and the time of staff and donor. We have quality system. Okay, so the implementation of a quality system is a prerequisite for a consistent approach to donor selection, and the confidentiality of donor records should be done. So donations should also be traceable, and it is done through the use of unique identification numbers for donors and donations. So all instruments and equipments should be checked, maintained, and calibrated. Okay? So quality system. So lahat, as you know na siguro by now, lahat ng ginagawa natin sa lab is kina-quality control po natin. Okay. We have donor hemovigilance. So this is the continuous process of data collection and analysis of adverse donor events. Okay, so this can improve donor safety through implementation of preventive and corrective actions. Okay, so data collected should be analyzed regularly in order to perform possible corrective and preventive actions. So dito papasok yung keeping ng records in case there are adverse events or side effects na na-experience ng donor. So, nilalog yon or ginagawa ng reports, inaaral, and then, if possible, gagawa ng preventive actions. We have monitoring and evaluation. So, the process of donor selection requires ongoing monitoring and evaluation to ensure that it achieves its objectives of ensuring donor and patient. So, what is, or let's proceed with the donor selection process. Okay. So, this is a flowchart, an example of flowchart ng ating donor selection process. So, okay. So, let's start with our donor registration. So, mag-register muna si patient. Then, you will get your pre-donation information. If hindi siya pumasa dito, or hindi siya pumasok sa criteria, or there's something wrong, so you will defer the patient. If not, pag okay naman, okay, so completion of donor questionnaire na. Okay, if okay din doon, donor interview and pre-donation counseling. Next is our donor health and risk assessment. Okay, yun. Then if okay siya doon, okay, so pumasa naman sa lahat sa interview, wala siyang risk or anything. So we accept na for blood donation. And then proceed with the blood donation. And then blood screening. Okay. So if naman it is found out na meron siyang risk or kaya naman unhealthy si patient, dito papasok yung mga deferrals natin. So each step, patient can be deferred. Until to the last step sa risk assessment, pwede ka pa rin ma-defer. Okay? Pag na-defer ka, there are different types of deferral, di ba? So if kakategorize si patient as permanent, so i-keep na yun sa records that this patient is permanently deferred. Pag temporary naman, edi ayun. So on. Okay? So, documentation of deferral, and then canceling and referral, and next. Okay. So if nakapasok si patient or nakapag-proceed sa blood donation, so retention of records na rin. Records din. So future donations niya, may record na si patient, alam na din ng facility that this patient is okay. Or nakapag-donate na before. Okay, so mas mabilis na yung process for the next time. Okay, so babalik lang ulit siya sa donor registration if mag-donate siya ulit. Yung mga deferred naman, okay, so if tapos na yung period ng temporary deferral nila, they could proceed again with donor registration and then ulit-ulit yung interview kung papasa na sila this time. So on. Okay. So in summary, you have your donor registration, pre-donation information, completion of donor history questionnaire, DHQ. So you have fourth donor interview in pre-counseling, health risk assessment, and then lastly, yung informed consent. So ano bang under ng donor registration? So dito kinukuha yung mga following details. You have your full name, gender, date of birth, address, contact details. Okay? And then dito, na-assign yung unique donor number. Okay? So it should be attached to the donor questionnaire. Sanitary collection bags and blood sample tubes. Okay? So dun sa donor bag, hindi po natin nilalagay yung name ng donor. Next, we have the pre-donation information. So, ano nakuha dito? Okay. So, provided verbally or printed graphic, audiovisual, or online materials. Okay. So, provides the knowledge about health conditions that would make them unsuitable to donate. Okay. Dito, ini-instruct na natin si patient or parang binibrief kung ano bang mangyayari sa donation. Okay. Or if binabanggit din ano yung mga health conditions, possible health conditions na magiging unsuitable sa donor. So, dito pwedeng mag-decide si patient if tutuloy pa ba talaga siya or pwede siyang mag-self-defer. Okay. Okay. So, ano ba ang ano yung mga kasama sa informations na sinishare natin sa patient? We have the nature and use of blood and its components. So, importance ng maintaining na healthy lifestyle. You have yung blood donation process mismo. Importance ng donor compliance. And options to proceed or withdraw. You have your transfusion-transmitted infections. Possible consequences in case na abnormal yung resulta nila sa screening. And possible adverse reactions. So if okay sa patient, let's proceed with the donor history questionnaire. So this questionnaire is given to donors at the time of registration for completion before the donor is interviewed and assessed. So the donor's medical history is evaluated here. So it should be complete and signed by the donor on every donation. So particular focus on first-time donors should be observed. So DHQ must be kept for at least 10 years, yung record ng health facility to at least for 10 years, and should have an option for confidential unit exclusion or CUE. Let's discuss this further later on. So this is an example of a blood donor history questionnaire. So andyan yung details ni patient. Yan. So type of donor, method ng collection. Okay? And then here yung inyong simula na yung history questions. So, ayan. Are you feeling healthy today? Currently taking medications? Okay. So, have you received any vaccinations? Ayan, yung mga kasama sa mga tanong. Ayan, and so on. Ayan. So, yung questions dito mostly related lang din dun sa mga instances na dinidiffer natin si patient. For example, had sexual contact with a person who has worked abroad, engaged in casual sex. So, pag ganun, prone si patient sa bloodborne diseases or sex-transmitted diseases, diba? So, yun yung times na dinediffer natin sa patient. Kapag high risk sa AIDS or kaya may hepatitis, yan yung mga sex-related diseases din, diba? So, yung mga questions sa dito sa questionnaire, almost related lang din dun sa mga diseases or instances na kailangan i-differ si patient. Ayan. Had hepatitis, had malaria. Ayan. Ayun. So, ayan. Basahin nyo na lang to so you have an idea. So, what is the confidential unit exclusion ba? Or the CUE? This is offered to donors to report immediately if they are pressured to donate or who are able to recall at risk behavior that makes their blood unsafe. Okay? So, this is an example of the confidential unit exclusion. Okay? So, ito, binibigay natin ito kay patient. Okay, so it states here, if at any point during or after your blood donation, you realize that your blood may not be safe for transfusion, please inform the blood service facility staff immediately. Okay, so please use your blood donation ID number and the segment number written below in identifying your blood donation. Okay, so in cases lang na biglang na-recall ni patient na maybe hindi pala safe yung blood niya. Okay, or ayan, in case niya ayan, mas pressured lang siya, hindi pala siya sigurado, or kaya naman, sometimes sa mga patient, may mga patient talaga tayong sinungaling, okay? Sa iba ang sinasagot sa questionnaire, and so on. And then, baka minsan, or baka biglang makonsensya sila. So, meron silang way to, para mas mabilis nilang makontak or malaman yung kanilang blood bag mismo. Okay, so mas mabilis na yung process for the blood service facility to locate their blood. Okay, para matest na agad or hindi na masama sa mga safe na blood. Okay, ganun. Hindi ko naman sinasabing lahat ng pasyente sinungaling, pero meron talagang mga pasyenteng sinungaling. Ayun. Okay. So, next we have donor interview and pre-counseling. Okay. So, if tapos na yung DHQ, should be reviewed prior to donation. So, check if the donor understood the questions and able to give informed consent. Next, we have health risk assessment. So, donor health and PPI risks require privacy, sensitive and non-judgmental approach, and confidentiality. So, this provides opportunity for the donors to self-differ and in-depth discussion may be needed. So, the basic health check is performed such as the physical examination, yung weighing, measurement ng vital signs. And then lastly, you have your informed consent. So, a voluntary agreement given by the prospective donor to the donation of blood, to testing for TTI, and for the transfusion of the blood. Yun yung kanilang dapat bigyan ng informed consent. So, may sasignan silang part dun sa questionnaire. So, it is legal and an ethical requirement. Okay? So, individuals under legal age may be accepted but within written consent from parent or guardian. So, it is legal and ethical requirement as this implies one willingness to donate blood given by a mentally competent person. Okay? So, dapat mentally competent yung person. Okay? The less than 18 years old donors, kailangan ng written consent from parents or authorized representatives. So, ano ba yung information provided sa patient? Again, you have your risk of the procedure, yung test na ipaperform sa inyong blood, the donation process itself, yung mga potential adverse actions, and of course, confidentiality. So, ito yung example ng isang written consent. Okay? So, it states here, I certify that I'm the person referred to in all the entries which were read and well understood by me. So, it is my free and voluntary act to donate my blood and aware of the risks. During and after extraction, the same have been explained to me in understandable language and dialect that I speak. Yeah. So, sign name ng blood service facility here and the donor signature here. So, written consent, this is important in case of for record keeping. Okay? Ito yung then na patunay na hindi pinilit si patient and voluntarily talaga siya. Sometimes in medical legal, then nagagamit siya. Okay. Okay, donor deferral and donor records. So deferred donors must be treated with respect and care. Okay, so there should be a clear explanation of the reason for their deferral. So records should be signed by the donors and it should be kept confidential, easily retrievable, and allow traceability. Please. Yeah. So the next slide, our next PowerPoint, yung different donor deferrals.